All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, I am Kariann, or you can call me Carrie. I am the CEO and founder of Carrie Esports, and an avid fan of basically anything to do with FPS games like Valorant and CS. So very excited to be here and very, very interested to see what is in store for us today.
Happy to have you here. Let's just get right into it. Do you want to give us a little bit of an insight of your esports org?
Yeah, absolutely. So Carrie Esports is an esports organization that was founded initially as a meme. All I did really was tweeted, "Hey guys, what if I just started an org and named it after myself?" And it kind of got traction. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll start something then. I am very deeply invested in games like Valorant and CS. And so, I mean, given the logistical factors of Valorant, it made sense for me to dip my toes in with CS first. So that's where I kind of started. That was in June earlier this year. Now it's November, so we've been a few months into the progress of growing our organization and fielding a team. And so, yeah, we currently compete in CS and CS only, but we are looking to expand into other titles, hopefully soon, if not later. So just a little bit about Carrie Esports.
So, if you don't mind me asking, because I know the NA scene's a little wishy-washy right now with the CS. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you chose CS over right now Valorant, which is popping off in NA scene at least?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's very evident that Valorant is ever so present in the NA scene, more so than it is in Counter-Strike. I would definitely assume that the biggest reason why people tend to consume more Valorant in the North American region is because of the amount of pro players that have moved from Counter-Strike to Valorant. When the mass exodus happened back in 2020, a lot of these players were on tier 2, tier 1.5 teams in Counter-Strike. Most of them, I'm not saying all of them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, or most of them rather, some they weren't really getting paid. If they were getting paid or salaried, it wasn't a lot of money. There was not a lot of organizations really invested in Counter-Strike. And so when the mass exodus happened, a lot of organizations flocked to Valorant. So, you know, since then, there's definitely been a discrepancy in terms of player base and in terms of viewer base in the North American region between Counter-Strike and Valorant. You know, they're both very similar games, but very different target demographic, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's also culturally as well, like how the game is run. I mean, of course, CS you don't have like jet flying in the air or neon sliding through, so it's less chaos on the screen to worry about or to understand. Where in Valorant, it's like you have to worry about like not only the guns and the abilities, but you have to also about like a little bit of everything, like each gun and everything. So would you say like that NACS would make a comeback, or is it like very hard for it to make a comeback in case Valve's antics of not really stepping in as much as unless when they only matter, like the only time they have ever stepped in for something is when they need a punishment or it's the major. So do you always feel like that's kind of like a little bit it's kind of fucked up that they don't do that compared to Riot, where they're all really hands-on on everything they touch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there is always a pros and cons to being laissez-faire like Valve and being more involved like Riot. You know, you can shame and hate on Riot, but the truth of the matter is they are really, really committed to fostering a community within the game, professionally and casually. Whereas Valve is a lot more hands-off and lets tournament organizers like TSL, Blast, DreamHack like handle a lot of the professional logistics of the game. So, wait, what was your question again?
Do you see like NA coming back? Because I know like it's like, do you think like the community itself can bring NA scene back, or do you feel like Valve can try to bring the NA scene back because it's kind of like left for dust in a sense?
Yeah. I think the sad reality of the situation is I don't think Valve is really going to step in anytime soon, especially with NA. You know, with a very thriving and growing scene like EU Counter-Strike, the fact that Valve isn't as involved as well with EU pretty much solidifies where they stand with NA. So the real answer to that is it really hinges upon the tier 2, tier 3 scene of amateur players or semi-professional players to carry on the weight that was once left by now pro Valorant players. So it's going to have to be a collective effort from everyone in the tier 2 scene, from org owners to production, to casters, to talents, to players, to people even watching in ACS, to step in and cultivate that community that was, that became a vacuum for a little while. So the answer to your question is maybe there is a potential. And, the thing about Counter-Strike and why it will never die is because there are so many passionate people that still love and breathe Counter-Strike. They live and breathe. They live and breathe Counter-Strike.
For sure.
And they're not going to let it go despite Valorant or Overwatch 2 or whatever FPS or class-based games that come along. They're not going to let it go. So NACS is not going to die. It is, at the very worst, going to shrink even more. But I think with the amount of committed and passionate people in tier 2, I think there is a way and there is a possibility that it could be revived.
No, yeah, for sure. Because it's you could definitely look at it, because we'll just talk about like a very small portion of the community, the surf community. That's one of the most passionate communities in the world, because there's like so many servers for that as well. That's the surf. And like they don't even play competitive CS, or they don't even play the FPS. They just like to do that. And that's just a small part. And they've been committed for such a long period of time. But then you look at the competitive scene like FPL or ESEA, where the people like that, it's they're still passionate people, because CS does have it has a history compared to Valorant, because Valorant, let's be serious, is still very young. Community is very young. It's mostly just people coming from another game. It's not really anybody grown from Valorant that's like has made it, like not a lot at least. So yeah. Do you find that that's what Valorant's lacking is a dedicated community compared to CS? Because the CS community is one of, I think, in my opinion, the most dedicated community in esports.
Yeah.
If you can like agree or disagree.
Give me 1 second. So to answer your question, Valorant is definitely a very new game in terms of how old it is compared to Counter-Strike, but also in terms of the community. So, I'm going to go on a limb and say Valorant has a very dedicated community, not as much as Counter-Strike, because Counter-Strike's been around for 2 decades? Very long time. Yeah. So a lot of the people that are still playing Counter-Strike have grown with Counter-Strike. So they are very dedicated and they're never going to waver from the game. I think there is a different kind of dedication in the Valorant community and the CS community. In the CS community, the dedication led by a lot of the people still playing the game, they just want the game to exist and survive, and the professional scene to sustain itself. Whereas in Valorant, the dedication is with the intent of growing Valorant. So I can't say one is more dedicated than the other. Like being in both communities, I think they're both equally dedicated, but because of different reasons. Valorant, they want the game to grow. For example, Game Changers, a lot of people are dedicated to fostering a safe, marginalized community for a safe community for marginalized identities. Whereas with Counter-Strike, that dedication is towards making sure that the game is gonna stay around for a while. Yeah. Because we've seen how it turns out with other games like Team Fortress 2, where it's kind of gone down the shitters. Like there's a lot of cheaters, and I think for a while in Counter-Strike that was a big issue in matchmaking, right? But Valve kind of sort of listened and they kind of turned things around, revamped the matchmaking system. So like that dedication from CS fans has ensured the game's longevity, regardless of like who leaves the game or how many people leave the game.
For sure. I feel like, people can agree. Like, Valve really barely updated the game, in my opinion, until Valorant started walking around. Because I feel like Valorant was the first true tech 5v5 shooter that actually competed with CS. You can say Overwatch like had its run, but to be honest, it never really put up a challenge against CS, because CS was just that it was just that solidified and that good of a game. But I feel like ever since Valorant came around, like you'll see like now the M4A1S got buffed ever since because it was just left in the shitter for like years now. It got buffed, and then like they bringing new maps in. They're like developing new things. Do you think like it took them too long for them to actually update the game? And do you think they're essentially shooting themselves in the foot for just not even like really communicating with the team? Because I mean, look at Riot. With Riot, you can just go to a game and then you could randomly run into one like a developer, like a social media manager. I ran into one like 2 months ago, like just a random social media manager from Riot, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I helped Great Chamber," and then like it's just like he was like a random ranked game. But then in Valve, or I mean not in Valve, in CS:GO, like you don't really run into like Valve employees. I think it's like maybe one or two that actually talk to the community. Do you feel like that's just hurting the game, or do you feel like what would you do, or what would you say that would help CS grow even more?
Yeah, I think the thing with Valorant is that their developer team and their general team, they are so well versed and well involved in the community in various of ways. Some even play the game. You know, some are on Twitter and they're constantly communicating with the audience and their followers and other, you know, bystanders. Whereas in Counter-Strike, I couldn't really tell you who is the social media manager for Counter-Strike Twitter account. I can't really tell you who the developers are. I can't really tell you all these sort of stuff that you would know from Riot and the Valorant developer team. So the way to really salvage Counter-Strike, I think, comes in multiple parts. I think there has to be much more of a push from Valve, which is like asking for like it's a lot. It's asking for a lot, because if they don't even, you know, like, not to say they don't give Dota 2 the time of day, but if they don't even exercise as much of a presence in Dota 2 anymore, who's gonna say they're gonna exercise the same kind of presence in Counter-Strike? You know, like they left TF2 out to dust. You know, like I think CSGO and Dota 2 are their two really big titles, and it just seems like they have a very laid back approach. So I think if they take a more proactive stance on ensuring that Counter-Strike is still well accounted for, the updates are good, they're listening to their community, and I think they do it. Like, my assumption of the Counter-Strike world is that there are a bunch of dedicated, passionate developers and map designers and all these sort of stuff, right? But it's not as big, it's not as fleshed out as Riot's team. Riot's a massive company. Valve is too, but you don't really see much of a presence from Valve. So I think more proactiveness from Valve, getting involved in majors, making sure that, you know, tournaments are not taking advantage of teams and players. I think that's one, but I also think it's really hard to say, because CS is one of those games that has been around for decades. So a part of me also thinks, like, you know, this is like the natural direction for a game that's been out for 20 years to go in. Sure, it'll never die, but it's definitely not as popular as it used to be, and that's okay. Maybe it's just going to be the niche FPS game for veterans or people that have been in the FPS scene for a long time. So I don't know. It's a very difficult question, because I feel like a lot of parties within CS have tried to fix what's going on, but it's not necessarily working either.
Because I mean, you can look at the smaller tournaments that like Valorant have, from like the 10K weeklies, the 1K weekly. It's just like it's brewing and like developing like talent within, or I mean, at least let's talk about NA. It's actually like brewing and like developing talents. It's like, hey, do you want tournament experience? Here you go. Do you want you put your name out there? Here you go. Here's some tournaments. You can join some weekly tournaments. It's like $1,000. It's $10,000. I think the biggest like tier 2 tournament was like 25,000. It was like, here you go, like join, and then you can put your name out there, and then you can meet new people. But I feel like with CS, I feel like it's not as watchable. Like, you don't see that, or like the personnel is not there, so you'll never see a simple join a T2, like a tier 2 tournament. It's just like it's not worth his time. But then like you'll see some people, like from at least when Ghost was still competing, when like you'll see Ghost, you'll see like Cloud9, you'll see all these big orgs, like, hey, they're joining these tier 2 orgs just to get some reps in at least. But yeah, I feel like that's also another thing that's slacking, because if you're not in a tier 1 tournament, nobody really cares in CS. I feel like, or not a lot of people watch it, which unfortunately sucks because like as a person who watches tier 1 CS, it kind of sucks because how are we supposed to develop young talent, or like young talent supposed to be coming to CS when you're not even giving credit to them? I mean, I think Valve is trying to do that with Game Changer. At least they're trying to develop Game Changers, or like not Game Changer. It's called Impact, correct?
Impact, yeah.
Impact. But I don't even know if like I haven't really been keeping up with it as much as I should. But do you think that they're doing a good job with that side of CS?
So ESL Impact, it's not run by Valve. It's run by the third party organizer. Like ESL okay. is comes very late into the game, a year and a half or so after Game Changers. Impact should have been done 5 years ago. Yeah. Hell, 10 years ago. This is not to say that the female side of Counter-Strike has never existed. There has been attempts made, like there's WESG that happened a few years ago. CLG Red won it. You know, like the EU G2 team that competes in Valorant now, Mimi, used to be a part of, she came from Counter-Strike. I forget what team she was on in Counter-Strike. But they all that roster came from Counter-Strike. So, you know, Counter-Strike has been the foundation for a lot of players, men, non-men, women. But Valorant, and especially Riot, has given the opportunity for these players to thrive. Like, for instance, like Wardell was like a middling, not even Wardell. Tens was a middling player in Counter-Strike at best. He had the aim, but, you know, they're super young, and he played for Cloud9 for a little while, and, you know, has always been floating around in the MDL, ECL stage. Goes on to Valorant. Valorant gives him all this breadth of opportunities, and now he's on Sentinels. He's literally the best person, or best, most well-known character or figure in the world of Valorant. So, you know, I say all this with regards to Impact because Impact came way too late. It should have been a foundational infrastructure put in place years ago. And that's the problem with Valve. The thing is that Valve and Counter-Strike is a game changer. When it first came out, game changer, revolutionized the FPS genre. But they struggled to keep up with the times. Yeah. So Game Changers came first, and now everyone knows Game Changers as the go-to tournament for non-men and marginalized identities to compete in. ESL Impact was something that just happened like this year, late last year. Should have happened a long time ago. And while I'm glad that the opportunity is there now, I feel like it's a little too late. It's there, but it's a little too late compared to Game Changers.
It's not going to be as big as Game Changers as it should have.
Yeah, you know, I did say once, like, maybe they'll catch up, but I thought about it even more, and I'm like, no, I don't think it. I'm very glad and very happy that Impact exists. It should have existed a long time ago, but it's like a second or minute, a month. Like, it's too late.
Yeah, because, I mean, and Valorant, let's be serious, it's like a brand new game. It keeps fresh. It's still growing. You can still... It's easier to be a bigger figure in Valorant than try to be a bigger figure in CS, in the female side at least, or like non-men side. Which, because if you go into, like, if you're new to FPS and you're female and you try to grow into CS, it's kind of hard because there's already a lot of solidified figures. It's hard to kind of grow compared to Valorant. Well, you see like C9 Mel. Well, you see like all these other like female players. Like they're not even they're not dominating Game Changers. Like they'll go into ranked and they'll pub stomp even like men as well. So it's also given an opportunity to like highlight. It's like, hey, women have always been good at video games. You just haven't given them a chance. And
here's the thing, though. Yeah. C9 Mel, C9 Alexis, Katsumi, Jazzykins. I think with the exception of Bobsta, they all came from Counter-Strike. I've known these girls since Counter-Strike days. Yeah. Like Mel was, I think she was an observer for Nerd Street. Before she did all the pro stuff, she was an observer for games. Alexis played for an IM team in Counter-Strike. See, the talent has already been there. Like, Alexis was already playing, and I think Mel was playing on a main or advanced team in Counter-Strike. Like, I've played with these girls before, way back in, CSGO 2018, 2019 days. they just never got the infrastructure. They never got the opportunity to really compete in something as big and as renowned and as well fleshed out as Game Changers. So, maybe Counter-Strike may be their favorite game, but when that opportunity from Valorant came along, it's too good to pass up. And look at them now. They're Cloud9 white, right? So that's the thing. I will say that the talent has always been there. It just has not been exercised by tournament organizers. And when these TOs like ESL did, it's too late. You don't have a Mel in Counter-Strike.
Yeah,
the Mel's in Valorant.
There's no one big figure in the at least in the female CS scene where like it's like everyone can point towards it. In Valorant, you can name like 5. In CS, I feel like you it's too late and it's hard to grow it, which in my opinion kind of sucks because it goes back to Valve not really touching the game. They update it here and there just to try to compete or just try to be a little ahead of Valorant. But minus that, they haven't touched it. And I feel like that's going to shoot them in the foot in the next 3 years. Because if they keep doing this, I feel like Valorant is just going to slowly they can only make their game better. Because, unlike League, don't get me wrong, League is a very completely different game. It's a MOBA. It's hard to actually make the game 100% balanced. But with Valorant, it's like an FPS. It's easier to make a game balanced. So if you can't do that, if you can only make better tournaments, if you can develop tier 2 scenes, if you could develop the Game Changer scene, it's kind of hard. It's like you can only get better from there. And it's like everyone's gonna be like, hey, Valorant's like a no-brainer for me. I feel like that's why a lot of people switched. If you talk to pros right now, you could ask them about how their CS experience was, and they're like, they'll say it's good, like the game itself, but when it comes to organizers and like actual help, it wasn't like there was no like direction people were given. I don't know if you can agree with that as well.
No, I agree. I think Vanity talked about it in one of his tweets. Vanity used to play for this team called Chaos, right? And Chaos was a very good team that made EPL, and they could have gone to Europe. They were going to go to Europe. They were going to compete in Europe, but they didn't have the infrastructure to get themselves over to Europe, I believe, or something like that. Either way, Anthony talked a lot in his tweet about, how they struggled in Counter-Strike. And the reason why they made the move to Valorant is because at the end of the day, you can play the game as much as you like, grind the game as much as you like. But if we don't have any money to pay for rent, what do you do? Like, you can't, I don't get electricity. I don't get food. Like, eventually it comes down to I need sustenance for my livelihood. And so, as much as a player can really enjoy Counter-Strike as a game, if the tournament side of it, if the organizational side of it on the professional side is unable to fend or take care of these players, they're going to switch. And that's literally what happened. Like, a lot of people in MDL at the time when Valorant came up, they up and left. And until this very day, there's still a vacuum to be filled. I don't think we've, in my personal opinion, reached the quality of players that we had a few years ago that is at the same level now. Like, that is an ECL level.
Yeah.
That is my opinion, and people can disagree on it, but I really do think we're getting there. Like, the talent is growing. They're growing up. They're refining their qualities. But when these guys left to Valorant, that was a huge vacuum that is still something that we contend with in the scene today.
For sure. And you can also talk about personnel. Like, look at Riot. They got Lil Nas X to come in, and like for League at least, they're like, hey, Lil Nas X comes in and he's like performing at a League of Legends. This is an esports. This is like a big artist, and he's coming and performing at a Worlds event. So like, I feel like Valve hasn't done that, where they brought a big personnel that's not into gaming, that's not a gaming at all, to like really represent their game. I feel like there's that also as well, and then you can also add the fact that like I feel like appreciation as well. I feel like Valve, because you look at Riot, they come out with articles, they come out with stories about these even content creators, not even pros, and that's also like a big side of it, because I feel like content creation within your game just builds up on it. Look at Valorant. Look how many content creators this really build up. You'll talk about like Flex Ninja. You'll talk about like Ethos. You talk about like Willis. Like, all these guys. Like, these guys have like really built up the game, and they not only are they playing the game, they also talk about the esports side as well. So like, it's also like hand in hand. And I feel like that's something that that CSGO really lacks, is content creation, or at least content creation for everybody, in my opinion.
Yeah, no. There has been efforts made by amateurs and semi-professionals in, I would say, like ECL level, advanced level, to stream and create more content. But if like the issue that really occurs here is that most of these players have school, they have jobs, right? They come home from work, they come home from classes, and what do? They scrim for hours. Maybe if they had more money or salary by like an organization, they'd have the means to kind of have a safety net, a backing. In that, like, they can pay for their food, they can like cover their rent a little bit. But if they don't have that, they don't have time like to create content. Most of these guys are kids, they're young adults, teenagers. So it's really hard for these creators or these players to really create content when they simply don't have the time, the resources, or the effort. I don't blame them one bit. I really do wish a lot of these players had the ability to create more content. But like, there is just more investment into Valorant from organizations. And even like, I call them like Twitter orgs, like Devour or Synergy. There's a lot of investment. You don't have like orgs like that in CS that like funds creators to do the stuff that they're doing. You don't. And so now the issue really is, if there's no one to do that and no time to do that, then what do we all do? So that's like the big question that everyone in CS is all figuring out right now. And, to tie this into Valorant, I'd be curious to see how Ascension goes next year, how that system's going to play out, because I know a number of pros have expressed their concerns over how Ascension feeding into challengers is going to work. Maybe we'll see people flocking back to Counter-Strike. You never know. Can't say for sure until next year happens, but maybe we won't have a big exodus that we got in 2020, but maybe we'll see a couple pros or two warm their way back into the game.
Yeah, you can only keep some. I mean, that's the cons of franchising, because if you're gonna limit the amount of teams in one region, you're also gonna limit the amount of players and free agents in the game as well. Because a lot of these guys, as much as they want to, as much as content they produce, they have a competitive side, and if they can't itch the competitive side, they're gonna go somewhere else where that can be itched. And it's also the tier 2 scene has been expressed, because I know if you win Ascension, you're only in franchise for like a few years. I think it's not even permanent.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. I think if I read that right, I think if like, for example, if TSM, they're in Ascension, right? We'll give them an example. I don't think, because Valorant, they said that they're every year they're going to extend the slot by one, I think, or 1-2. They're like each region, they're going to slowly. But I don't think so if an Ascension, your spot is temporary. You'll be there for a few years, but then you have to fight in Ascension again, or unless like you buy your franchise spot. So it's very unclear. They haven't made Ascension clear enough where it's like, is it even worth orgs spending money on it? Is it a risk? Is it like, because like you'll see like I don't know, like Dignitas, Dark Zero, Ghost, they all like essentially like they're gone. They're not in Valorant anymore, and they have content creators in Valorant, but they're not really in Valorant anymore. So the only teams that I've noticed is right now is TSM and like Shopify Rebellion. I think that's one of them, and version 1. They're the only teams that I think that are like, they were like one of the big teams that were in VCT, but now they're fighting for Ascension. And that's also something I've concerned, because like I don't want it to be a Valve thing again, where it's like the tier 2 scene is so uncertain. We don't know what's going on. How are we supposed to qualify? Are we just going to get a bunch of kids just like anybody can join? Is it like you have to actually qualify to join? I don't like how they've done it, because it's like you haven't made it clear to like the players, especially like the people that actually like, they gave up school for this. They give up school, and then you're not even like you're not even explaining how Ascension is. And like these people, like they gave up school, they gave up their job for this, and the Valorant is their life, and you're not even really explaining to them. I feel like Riot owes it to them. Yeah,
I think esports in general is very finicky when it comes to sacrificing something like school, something stable like school or work or something like that. And, like, I feel for these players, right? They were sold a dream. They were given a dream. I could make it out. I could I could be at 17 a signed content creator to Energy or a pro player for Knights or something like that. And then it's all taken away because Riot's like, well, we only have X amount of slots that we can give to team. Sorry about that. So I don't blame the players for feeling very stressed out one bit. But again, like, I think there has to be something said about how fragile esports is. It's such a young industry. Valorant in particular is like, what, 2.5 years old? Yeah. Almost 3. It's so young. Maybe if it was a game like Counter-Strike and there is a system like Riot in Counter-Strike, you can make an argument, okay, maybe this is worth dropping out for or worth like sacrificing something for. But with a game that young like Valorant, where everything is volatile and Riot's constantly changing guidelines and infrastructure, yeah. I feel for these players.
I mean, esports
it's rough.
As a whole, everybody can agree that esports is not a stable place in general. Nowhere. I mean, you look at any job you look at, like, you'll be a content creator, you can be like a manager for esports, but like one day your job could just be taken away or you could just be fired. I feel like esports is that people think it's sunshines and rainbows, but I feel like, I mean, we've talked to people like in the insides, and it's like, it's not really sunshines and rainbows. Like, there's a lot of knit and greeny things, and like they'll just, I mean, I don't know if you saw like 100 Thieves, like I think 2 months ago, they fired like a bunch of their staffs just because they just wanted to lay off. It's like one of those things. It's like, wait, what? It's like out of nowhere they just fired like 10 people just because they're trying to get new people in, and it's just like out of nowhere. You could be the hardest working person there and your job could just be taken. I feel like people don't understand that, and I feel like people should always have a backup plan. In my opinion, esports is still too young to make a full-time living or like drop things into actually go, because there's no system to esports. It's like, hey, you have to get lucky. There's no like, you can't go to school for esports. You either have to know somebody, you have to work as a side gig for somebody, or like you develop your own brand, which is like even harder. Mm-hmm. So I feel like don't people understand? I don't know. I mean, you definitely have a more clear understanding of this because, I mean, you created Carry Esports, so I feel like you have more of a say and you can you can kind of relate to this in a way.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know how I feel about this. Like, I am very, very grossly jaded by the world of esports. While my time working in the esports industry has been relatively short compared to other people, the opportunities I've had outside of esports far supersedes anything I've ever done in esports in terms of pay, in terms of benefits, in terms of like work-life balance. Like, esports works you to death. Yeah. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 17 or 34. You could be a veteran in the scene for all I know. It will work you to death. And it is really, really sad to see so many people, so many passionate and talented and intelligent individuals burn out within esports. And you're starting to see that crack in Valorant. CS, yeah, it's happened a lot in Counter-Strike. But like Valorant, you see players literally like retire and just take a step back from the game and literally like don't touch the game.
Because it's like, it's hard because you can only be satisfied with the game for so long if it's not offering, because in reality, money makes the world go around. And if the money isn't good, it's not your money fuels passion. If there's not enough money, your passion can only take you so far. Because I know the only community I know that actually has a lot of passion is the fighting game community. I don't know if
really,
yeah, like their prize pool is little to nothing. It's dog shit. Everyone just travels. Everyone travels just for passion and just for bragging rights.
Wow.
Like the fighting game scene, minus Evo, it's like the money is really not that good. It's like a tenth of what FPS has. So,
and they still play.
They'll still travel. Wow. They'll still go around the world, and they'll still, because of the love of the game, of the love of the fighting game. And I feel like that's like me seeing that, and it's like, damn. You can also make a living. You get signed to an org, and an org pays for all that stuff. But it's also hard. I think passion is hard to fuel. I feel like people don't understand that. It's like, oh, I can go in and I would love this game. Why would I ever hate it? It's like, no, you don't really understand how difficult it is to actually love something for such a long period of time, especially in esports. Watching it, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I could watch esports all day if I can. It's that entertaining, but actually working in it, it's actually very difficult.
Passion can only take you so far.
For sure. 100%. 100%. Because like, you have to have a backup. You can't make this into a full-time thing. I mean, you hear stories about people like, I'm dropping out. I want to make content creation. I want it into gaming. But it's like, that is something that is like not meant. People highlight look at him. But like, people don't highlight like all the other people that failed. That actually is like, you know what? I didn't make it. I'm going to go back. Yeah,
literally. Yeah, it's really rough. So that's why like my biggest thing to creators or people trying to get into esports, and it's funny because we had this conversation earlier. Literally, it hurts me to say it because I love esports and I still want to work in it. I'm very invested in Counter-Strike, as you know, with Carry Esports, and I follow the Valorant scene very closely. But even with all that involved, I don't know if esports is worth really, really investing your time into unless you know yourself that you want to commit to working these crazy hours, unless you know that, you are committed to seeing it through, that you don't mind getting paid nothing or close to nothing. Because it gets really bad, as you know, like it gets really bad. Contractors, talents, TOs, they get paid little to nothing sometimes in some games. It doesn't even have to be like FPS. It could be FGC. It could be like sports games. Like they don't get paid much. So, and to bring up Carry Esports, the reason why I do it is because I don't want to be like a millionaire. I don't want to make money off of esports. I do it because I love the game, and I do it because I specifically love Counter-Strike, and I don't want the scene to pretty much dissolve. Exactly. And I love Valorant too, but the thing about Valorant and getting into Valorant, it's very expensive now. It's not an open system that it used to be. You don't see you will never see a Cinderella story like a crew who won 34 Nerd Street games in a row, or Nerd Street,
a win streak.
Yeah, you won't see storylines like that anymore. Cinderella story, because it's a franchise system, and for better or for worse, it is what it is at this point, and it's really now it's just a new chapter for Valorant, and it is going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds.
For sure, I think. And also, esports still has a lot of growing pains. I mean, yes, there's still. I mean, there are solidified esports like League, Dota, and CS who has definitely lived and exceeded the length of like most esports that have come before it. Yeah, and seeing that it's good sign. It's like a positive sign. Seeing a game last and still be even better for after 10 years. It's always like it's also a breath of fresh air, because you can also upgrade, because I know Source 2 has been leaked and like that has been teased so much for CS, and I feel like after that's going to really revamp the game as well. Because have you been keeping up with the whole Source 2 thing going on?
I don't know if it's even happening anymore. I've been hearing leaks again and again and again on my timeline, but to be honest with you, I really couldn't tell you if it's going to happen or not. And if it is going to happen, it's like when is it going to happen? What, exactly. like 5-10 years?
Because I've noticed with Source 2 is how they're making it sound. It's like a brand new game. It's going to revamp Counter-Strike.
Wait, where are you hearing this from?
Oh, it's all over Twitter. It's all over Reddit. It's like data miners are finding this. Like this is like, so Source 2 has already been shown in Dota, and people are showing it, and they're saying there's leaks going on around like it's gonna happen after the major. It's gonna happen after this year. We're gonna start seeing Source 2. They're gonna release it. It's just a lot of things that's been leaked. It's essentially going to revamp the game and make it more approachable, because let's be serious, CS kind of looks outdated visually.
Yeah, it does.
It's very outdated.
Yeah, you get my friends in a CS, and they're like, this game looks like it was made in the 90s, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I love it.
Yeah, no, it is, but nobody can deny it, of course, because if you have a game that looks like in the 90s, it's harder to promote. It's harder to just like make content over, because it's like, yo, why are you playing such an old game? It's like, no, this is actually like a very popular game. And that's why I feel like Valorant right now is popping, because it's look at these nice colors, look at the nice graphics, it's nice and beautiful, it's very promotable. And you also have the pros and cons with that, and you can't deny it, because if a game doesn't look nice, it's not going to be it's hard to promote and it's hard to grow. because I mean it is how it is. Because
yeah,
if you can, like, you know what I mean.
yeah, exactly.
So because I mean because I want CS to grow. I grew up watching CS. I grew up watching these pros. These pros are my idols. So like
Yeah, I know.
watching like we've both been through this. We watched CS grow. We wanted to thrive. Don't get me wrong. We both love Valorant, but we also love CS. It's a healthy competition that should always exist, because if one dies, one's gonna have a monopoly. I mean, look at CS. Kind of like it had a monopoly for like 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
It had a monopoly for 10 years. They don't really care because, like, what are you gonna go? There's no other games like us. Valorant comes up, is like, oh shit, now we actually have a competition. It's like it's getting, the numbers are closing in. Let's keep the fan base within, and it's a healthy competition that should be, because we love both games. Of course, community can be different in
community. Both ways. Yeah. The community is leaves a lot more to be desired on both ends, especially. But I think both games differ in terms of how their community can be controversial.
There's no eat-haters in CSGO.
Yeah, because everyone's married. Yeah. Everyone in Counter-Strike's married. Like, they all have kids. They go
outside.
They have kids, and like once they put their kids to bed, I'm gonna load up some Counter-Strike and bully some teenagers in Counter-Strike. No, I'm kidding. They don't do that. Like, a lot of these guys that play Valorant with like their CS with their 10-year coin, they're super sweet. They're super nice.
They're chill people. Like, you could be losing, and then everyone will be like, "Oh, we're just having a fun time. We're just vibing."
Yeah, whereas you hop into Valorant and some like 12-year-old kid's gonna be yelling at me saying slurs and obscenities just because I'm a woman. Like, yeah, both games can be very toxic in their own right, but I have to say Valorant takes the cake in terms of like how aggressive people can be. Whereas
do you think Riot should step in?
Yeah, I don't know what Riot could do though. Like, I do think Riot should step in, but what do they do?
I propose they should do a hardware ban, my opinion. Because if you're going to go into a game with the intention of saying a homophobic slur, sexist, and just be like racist, like I say give them give them an account ban. If they do the same thing and it shows like that account has been banned before, I say a hardware ban, because like, in my opinion, like, why do you deserve to come back, and like, why are you like allowed to do this in your heart? Because in my thing, of course, you see CS. It's community based, and look how much it's thriving. I mean, to be honest, I'm seeing more and more sides like where people are just hating Valorant, and it's not even the game; it's people just hating the community and how like it's just not. It's not, because there's cringe things, but like CS, there's a lot of cringe, but it can be funny.
Yes,
there's content and there's comedy within the cringe in CS, but you rarely ever see that in Valorant.
I think it's just because they're just so young. The people in Valorant are so young.
But there was a lot of young people when they when CS was still growing, and they made wonderful content. So you can't. I feel like the excuse of they're young can't be used, because like CS, there was a lot of very young people, and they made content. They made funny content. They were innovative about it, and they just like, it's just that's what hurts about me, because I think all my For You page on TikTok, I don't know if it's for you, like, it's all just Twitch clips and just people screaming, and then just like it's like it's the same old Twitch clip content, and that's what I've noticed a lot with that compared to CS, where it's like different content, like people trying new things, going to do different events and all that. Because I feel like that's also like a big thing that Valorant and like Riot has like, or a content creator as a whole is lacking, is more creativity. I feel like Willis is the only one that comes to mind that has been really innovating when it comes to content.
Yeah. So then, like, I'm curious if you think that the youth in Counter-Strike back in the day were making much more substantial, interesting content. What is Valorant doing wrong? What essentially is wrong with the kind of content being made in Valorant? Let's talk about like your For You page, for instance. Like, if you see a CS clip, what makes that different from a Valorant?
I feel like it feels more organic, and it doesn't feel like it's pushed, or it doesn't feel like it's forced, in my opinion. Where I feel like sometimes in Valorant, where I feel like the comedy is it's very pushed. If you can understand, if you know what I mean. I'm not saying like all content is bad in Valorant. There's some really good content creators in Valorant. I mean, I love seeing the like the editors, like the moves and all that. I love seeing all those people doing those crazy edits. And like I love that kind of content. Like it's like you could tell they put in work. It's just for me. It's like I want to see work being put in, and like more community based like events, more community based like meetups and all that. And I feel like more content creators who are already solidified, if they did that, Valorant can only go up, up, and up. And like you can grow more content in that. That's where I would usually think, because I mean me and Danny would talk about it, and we're like, man, I wish like. Because we saw some Overwatch community, and like Overwatch, they have some funny content. I don't know why that community is funny.
That community is funny, but Overwatch is like, I'm gonna be real with you, is the most toxic game I've ever 100%. Played. So bad. So I love that game. It's the only game I've been playing recently, but it's so bad compared to Valorant and Counter-Strike. I would play both games
toxic,
all day.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why. I know this is a Valorant podcast, but I'm really curious. Why is Overwatch?
This is like, we could talk. We go on tangents. We love going on tangents. Go ahead.
Yeah. Why is Overwatch so? I don't understand.
I feel like it's funny because it's like the first time in relevancy since like 2017 they've ever had. So it's kind of funny why that community. I feel like the community is kind of gatekeeping as well. I don't know if you felt that way, because like I'm a new player. Don't get me wrong, I'm new. I've played like 2 hours of Overwatch 1. I've barely touched that game. I come in and I'm genuinely addicted to Overwatch 2. But it's just like people are like, oh, you're supposed to play the game this way. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to have fun. Why are we like trying so like I'm trying to have fun? Like, calm down, guys. None of us are going pro. Like, if you're going pro, you wouldn't be in my lobbies. I'm just saying this right now.
Dude, I would load into like gold lobbies and I'm like, why are you guys raging at me? Like, it's not that deep. And like, we can talk and compare Valorant and Counter-Strike in terms of community toxicity, but none of them holds any light compared to Overwatch.
It's just the gremlins. It's just the gremlins in that game where like they're just like sitting there. That's like their 10th game they've queued, or like their 20th game they're queued, and they're just losing, and they just take it out on people. And it's like, that's why it's like, it to me, I just laugh about it because I'm like, damn, it's like Valorant all over again. It's like, you'll lose 5 rounds in a row, or you lose pistol in like 2 more rounds, and then it's like, all right, guys, FF. It's like, dude, we haven't even tried yet. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. It's just like, it's interesting because I've never experienced, because in CS, I'll lose 10 rounds in a row and everyone's just vibing and having a good time. Because that's what pisses me off about, because that's why I've barely, because before I've played Valorant almost every single day. I'll play Valorant for 2-3 hours every single day, but now I can barely play one game. It's just because like people just like, I don't know when recently you've played Valorant, but like I'll queue in, we'll lose 3 in a row, and then someone will say something, will just piss somebody off, and it's just chain effect.
Oh man.
It just pisses me off because I'm like, guys, first of all, none of you are going pro. Second of all, it's just like, what are we doing here? It's just like, let's have fun. I know we're losing, we want to win, but let's have fun as well. And that's also like kind of annoys me. And because Valorant as a game, the concept, like the abilities, the map, it's amazing. I love it. I love the diversity they have in the game, where like they bring different cultures within the characters. I love that. But when it comes to like some players, it's like, why are you getting so angry over like a ranked game? Like, why are you trying to ruin someone else's ranked game? Especially like, for example, if a girl even speaks or says a call out in the game, like everyone's like, all right, I'm throwing now. It's like, what? Like, what's going on? It makes no sense. I mean, yeah, you could say it's young, but in the same time, it's like, you can ban this account. I think one of my friends, his name is Darth. He got into a game where the guy's name is, "This is my 8th account." How can Riot allow someone to make 8 accounts?
I mean, that says more about the player than it says about Riot. Like, why are you making 8 accounts? Just like touch grass or something. And
I think that account got banned. So I commented and I was like, the guy's next account is going to be, this is my 9th account.
That's ridiculous. Okay. Like if that's the case, I could definitely see an argument being made for hardware bans. But like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like, if you're goofing around with friends, like, I don't think that should warrant,
No, it's not goofing around. It's when you say slurs and when you say sexist things, that's where it deserves a hardware ban. If you're just joking around, if you kind of like roast someone for their aim, it's a joke. It shouldn't be of harm. It's like, if you make fun of someone's crosshair element as a joke, it's like, it's fine. But if you're just like targeting someone just because they're like transgender or they're a woman, it's like, dude, Like, you're not even trying to be funny. You're just trying to like be edgy.
Yeah.
It's not funny. It's like you trying to be edgy. Is it working? Especially in today's age, it's like just that being that kind of joke. It's like not funny. It's not that it's funny. It's that like it's just like not applicable to.
You know what I really like? I love the mute button in any and all games. Oh, the mute button's beautiful. Because like
they'll start pinging you and throwing abilities at you.
Yeah, well, that's fine. They can ping me, but I'm just going to be chilling, not listening to them. Or in Counter-Strike, I also do this in Valorant. I'll turn them down to like 1, like very, very quiet where I can't even hear them. And I'll see them I'll see their like little sound symbol saying that they're talking, but I don't know what they're saying. So I'll just keep talking over them while they continue to rage at me. I don't know if that's toxic, but it's like I don't mute them, so they know I can still hear them, but I actually can't.
Countering the toxicity, so it's not really toxic.
Yeah.
Because you're countering it, so like you're chilling.
Okay, thank you. That makes me feel a lot better. I don't know if that in itself is toxic, but it's like sometimes I don't even want to hear you say all this stupid stuff. It's just like I'm trying to have a good time. I play video games not because I want it to be my career. I play it because it's fun.
You come home from work, school, etc.
Yeah.
You just want to come vibe out and chill, especially with friends.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to get yelled at by like some gremlin in a game. I'm like, no, I'm not listening to you.
Because it's completely opposite. It's weird to me because me and Danny went to the League Worlds event in New York, and
how was that?
It was amazing. Genuinely one of the best. If you love esports, I highly recommend everyone go to a tier 1 event. Genuinely one of the best experiences you'll ever have. It's amazing. 100%.
I don't know LCS much though. Is it even worth going even if you don't know?
Do you play League at all?
Yeah, I do, but I don't watch Pro League.
To be honest, just going there for the atmosphere, because I went with my older brother. I gave my older brother. He has never touched League in his life, and he said he had a fun time.
Really?
He has never touched League, and he's like, oh yeah, this was like a fun time. Like he was just chilling. He loved the atmosphere. It was amazing. Yeah, you might not know what's really going on, but it's like a fun time. It was genuinely a fun time, and I tell everyone, it's worth it because I mean, let's be serious. It was a bit expensive. It was $300 a ticket. It is expensive, but I told myself, I'm like, it's worth it. Genuinely, I don't regret a single cent paying for it because it was a memorable moment that I won't forget.
Where was it?
It was in New York in MSG.
It was MSG? That's crazy.
Yeah. It was at the MSG. Then I saw like one of the best of 5 ever played. It was just, it was amazing. And I say because like we went there, everybody there, like everybody who played League were just a bunch of gamers and we were all just vibing, talking to each other, chilling. Like, it was amazing. I think like the guy in front of me, I was talking to him and he was just from Korea and then he was speaking perfect English and he was just telling me, he's like, oh yeah, I love League of Legends. It's like the best game ever. Like we were just chatting. It was just like a bunch of gamers. It was chatting because it's so funny because I'll go to an event, everyone's normal, but for some reason in ranked being on their behind the screen, it's just their act weird.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah.
Unfortunately, nothing ever happens in the East Coast. Like at least tier 1 events. Rarely anything happens in the East Coast.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple like really significant ones in Counter-Strike, like Boston Major, Atlanta Major. There hasn't really, like, in terms of tier 2 CS and tier 2 Valorant, you have like Fragadelphia, Nord Street Champs in like Philly. But yeah, there really isn't like a tier 1 like massive event. I really want that. Yeah.
I was suggesting. I told my friend. We had a discussion. I was like, if Valve wants to ever revive the CS scene, they should have a major in NA.
Yeah.
I told them like if they ever want to bring back NACS, they should have a major in NA, and it would, in my opinion, revitalize the series. It would just take one major in NA to revitalize the series, because you'll have Tarek, someone like Tarek, who's really big in Valorant right now, who would come and support.
Came from CS, yeah.
Yeah, he came from CS. He'll come and support. He still supports the major, and he still supports CS. If you have someone like him still supporting it and coming into NA and like representing CS at least, it would bring back the CS scene. And that's why I was saying, because I know after Brazil, the next one is in Paris, but I feel like that after the one in Paris, they should have one in NA, because we haven't had one since, again, the Boston Major.
That's true. We haven't had one since the Boston Major. That's
exactly.
crazy.
And that's why I made the argument. I was like, if they have a major in NA, every that would be a sold out crowd. If you had it in Madison Square Garden, if you had it in like Texas, if you had it in LA, anywhere else, it would be sold out in a heartbeat. Everybody, and who wouldn't want to go to a CS major? It's one of the biggest events in the year, or in esports at least. I don't know. Do you agree?
I think Valve has just been really scared to try something in NA because of just the dwindling viewership count and like the low presence of NA players. So, I mean, it shouldn't stop them. I think they definitely should do it, but, you know, is Valve going to do it? No idea. Or not Valve. Are the TOs going to do it? No idea. Maybe they don't find it economically feasible to invest in NA. Because, like, majority of Counter-Strike viewers all come from Europe or Brazil. There has to be a demand, and I'm not really sure if CS would. They may have to go with like a smaller arena, kind of like the Agganis Arena for Boston. Like they can't do like a Madison Square Garden. Like I think that's too big. Like League is MSG level. Valorant may be MSG level in a few years, but probably not Counter-Strike. I mean, Counter-Strike, they did ESL New York at Barclays Center, and they didn't even fill up that particular stadium much.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just like, if you're building off the hype and you see all these majors and like, they're all just like, not even NA, people from other countries will come and fly as well. Yeah. If you just have that many people come in and because CS is a very dedicated community. You'll have the dedicators will fly anywhere around the world just to see a major. I mean, if anybody had the money, I mean, if you had the money, we both would both go to a major. Just because, like, I would love to go to Brazil.
Yeah, Rio. Me too.
Who wouldn't want to go to Rio de Janeiro for the CS major? Like, that sounds
like, you know, sick. Everyone there loves CS. So oh my god.
Have you been watching the CS major at all?
Yeah, it's been crazy.
We're in challengers, by the way. So like, essentially, like, there's levels to the CS major.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, challengers, essentially, you have to qualify to the playoffs. Essentially. Yeah. So that alone was sold out crowds. It felt like a playoff stadium. It felt like a finals.
Hey, you can hear the audience like chanting in the background. I'm like, oh my god, this isn't even the actual day, dude. I'm so excited for the actual like
teams like Na'Vi, FaZe, Heroics. None of them were playing, and it felt like the intensity of the stadium was insane.
Yeah.
So it's just like it shows that CS it's not gonna die. CS will never die.
No.
CS will never die. But the NA scene, if it had the NA scene's backing, it would only make it better.
It would only get better. It would only get better.
Again, we can only hope.
I mean, I'm here. I'm with Carry Esports trying to do something, trying to make a difference.
I know Bad News. I don't know if you saw Bad News.
Bad News Bears. Bad News Eagles.
Bad News Eagles. They made the Legend stage. So that's huge. I think they're like a non-profit org as well. Like they're just
they're not an actual organization. They're literally just a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, just a bunch of dudes randomly are in the Legend stage playing against like teams like Na'Vi, FaZe, and Nick.
That's so funny.
That's insane. If they make the playoffs, that's only crazy. Because I know recently TSM was saying we want to get back into CSGO.
Yeah.
So would they? So it's now the question is, would they invest into an NA team, or would they take the safe option and let's go to a European or a Brazilian team?
Really up to TSM to decide. It's really what their focus is, what they want to focus on. Do they want to focus in developing and fostering and honing in on the skills of NA players, or do they want to kind of just get a really good team from the CIS region or from the EU region and call it a day and cash in? It depends on their desire, because they could go down the route of Cloud9 and completely pick up a Russian team, or they can go down the Evil Geniuses route and pick up 3 NA teams, right? Like,
they have a main roster, an academy, and then an academy to the academy.
Yeah, main roster, academy roster, female roster.
No, and then there's one more academy roster, a male roster, because it's 3 teams.
Oh yeah.
And they have and they have a female team, so it's like they have 4 like CS teams essentially.
No, they only have 3. They have EG White, EG Black, and EG Female. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the EG Black is like Carp Diem, EG White is like the actual team, and then Evil Genius is female.
Yeah. So it's definitely the safest route. I mean, TSM needs to go big or go home, or it depends on like if they want to really try to bring back the NA scene. Because I mean, it's really up to them. But we can only know because they said next year, because I know the majors already happened. You can't really buy roster right now, so it's definitely interesting to see. So, but I think we've reached the end, and as you know, we have a traditional question. So we want to know, what is your go-to boba order?
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Purple sweet potato smoothie with boba pearls. So freaking good. It is very unorthodox. You can only get it at like certain stores, like Gong Cha, which is like my local boba place. They have it. It's really good. Like, and I told you this, but it's very naturally sweet. So if you don't want something that's gonna that feels like it's gonna kill you, purple sweet potato smoothie, so good.
I like it because that's the most creative one we've had so far. Everyone's just a regular. It's like, oh, taro, milk, or just they've never had boba, or they just don't have boba.
No, purple sweet potato smoothie, and I stand by it.
All right, I'm happy for that. So that's it for the podcast, guys. Appreciate you guys listening. Thank you, Carrie, for coming on. If you have any projects you want to announce, if you have anything you want to plug in, you're more than welcome to.
Sure. Give us a follow on Twitter at Kari Esports, Kari Esports. If you want to keep up with anything Kari Esports related, or if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Kariann Tan, KariannTan. And I'll be around. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys for coming and listening. I love you guys. I'll see you then.
Bye.